Scientists studied 10,000 people for 30 years, and the result completely rewrote what we thought we knew about human personality. For decades, we believed that our character, our moral code, and our core decisions were stable traits, anchored deeply within our conscious minds. But this massive study revealed something far more unsettling. A single, unseen biological shift can completely dismantle who you are, turning an empathetic partner into an indifferent stranger and a cautious planner into a reckless gambler. The mystery lies not in what happens when you are asleep, but what happens when parts of your brain decide to fall asleep without your permission while you are still wide awake. Imagine walking down a busy city street, fully convinced that you are entirely conscious. You are talking, navigating, and making choices. Yet, deep within your cerebral cortex, entire clusters of neurons have secretly shut down, entering a state of profound slumber. This is not a metaphor. It is a newly mapped biological reality that challenges our very understanding of free will and personal identity. What happens when your brain begins to turn itself off piece by piece, and how does this silent biological hijacking shape the person you will become tomorrow? To understand this invisible transformation, we must look beyond the simple feeling of tiredness. We must venture into the microscopic architecture of the thinking mind, where an ongoing battle between survival, memory, and identity is fought every single hour of the day. The stakes of this battle are nothing less than the preservation of your actual self. Every moment you spend awake, your brain is actively changing its physical shape. As you experience the world, learn new information, and navigate social interactions, the connections between your neurons, known as synapses, grow stronger, wider, and more resource-heavy. This is a process of constant growth, a beautiful accumulation of neural structure. But this growth comes with a devastating physical cost. By the time you have been awake for 16 hours, your brain has reached a state of critical saturation. Your synapses are swollen, firing at their absolute limits, and consuming vast amounts of cellular energy. They are quite literally choked with the residue of your daily experiences. In a healthy cycle, the brain resolves this traffic jam through a deeply elegant process known as homeostatic synaptic downscaling. During deep, non-rapid eye movement sleep, the brain systematically weakens these connections, shrinking them back to their baseline levels. It is a universal reset. It cleans the slate, preserving the most vital pathways while clearing out the noise. But what happens when this reset is interrupted? When you deprive your mind of this crucial downscaling, your synapses remain swollen and hyperreactive. Your brain enters a state of neural congestion where new information cannot be properly integrated, and old information begins to distort. You are left with a brain that is physically incapable of processing complex emotions or making nuanced judgments. The world ceases to be a place of subtle shades and becomes a stark, threatening landscape of black and white. You are no longer navigating reality, you are merely reacting to the noise inside your own overloaded neural pathways. This raises a disturbing question: if your brain cannot reset its connections, what happens to the personality traits that those connections represent? The consequences of this neural congestion are far more profound than simple brain fog. When synaptic downscaling fails, it triggers a cascade of microscopic events that directly target your emotional stability and empathy. Enter the microglia. These are the brain's resident immune cells, acting as vigilant gardeners that constantly patrol your neural networks. Under normal conditions, microglia carefully prune away weak, unnecessary synapses during the night, keeping your cognitive architecture clean and efficient. However, when sleep is chronically disrupted, these microscopic guardians undergo a dark transformation. Instead of performing delicate maintenance, they enter a state of hyperactivation. They begin to aggressively consume healthy synapses, eating away at the very pathways that allow you to regulate your emotions and understand the feelings of others. This is the point where your personality begins to physically dissolve. As these vital connections are systematically destroyed, people experience a dramatic drop in their capacity for empathy. Studies have shown that even a single night of disrupted rest can cause a massive reduction in altruistic behavior. People become measurably more selfish, less willing to help others, and significantly more isolated. This is not because they have suddenly decided to be cruel, it is because the biological machinery required to process another human being's emotional state has been physically degraded. The warm, socially connected individual you were yesterday is replaced by a survival-focused, emotionally blunt version of yourself. You are witnessing the physical erosion of your own character, driven by an army of hyperactive immune cells operating in the dark. As this microscopic destruction continues, a second, even more bizarre phenomenon begins to take hold of your waking life. This is the phenomenon of local sleep. For a long time, scientists believed that sleep was an all-or-nothing state. You were either awake or you were asleep. But high-density EEG recordings have shattered this assumption. Researchers have discovered that when you are sleep-deprived, individual cortical columns, tiny vertical units of thousands of neurons in your cortex, can suddenly drop offline for brief fractions of a second. They enter a state of local sleep while the rest of your brain remains awake and active. You would never notice these microsleeps occurring. You do not close your eyes, and your body does not collapse. But during those split seconds, the specific function controlled by that sleeping cortical column is completely lost. If the column responsible for visual processing falls asleep, you might temporarily miss a changing traffic light. If the column responsible for impulse control goes dark, you might make a sudden, rash decision that you would normally never consider. This means that as you go about your day, you are not a single, cohesive conscious entity. Instead, you are a shifting mosaic of awake and asleep brain regions. You are, in a very real sense, partially asleep while navigating your life. This fragmented state of consciousness directly explains the erratic shifts in decision-making and mood that define the sleep-deprived mind. You are trying to steer a ship when parts of the crew are constantly passing out at their stations. The resulting journey is unpredictable, hazardous, and fundamentally out of your control. This brings us to the most critical consequence of this neural fragmentation, the complete breakdown of your moral compass and decision-making apparatus. When you are operating with a brain full of sleeping islands and congested synapses, your ability to calculate risk and predict consequences is catastrophically impaired. Psychologists have observed a phenomenon known as moral decoupling in individuals who are chronically sleep-deprived. This is a cognitive shift where the boundaries between right and wrong become highly elastic. Under normal conditions, your brain constantly runs internal simulations, predicting how your actions will affect your future self and the people around you. It relies on a delicate balance of emotional intuition and logical analysis. But when local sleep begins to disable key nodes in your cognitive networks, this balance is destroyed. The brain loses its ability to simulate the future. You become entirely trapped in the present moment, driven by immediate rewards and basic survival instincts. You become highly susceptible to ethical lapses, dishonesty, and reckless risk-taking. It is not that you have suddenly lost your moral values, it is that your brain can no longer access the complex neural networks required to apply those values to real-world situations. You are operating on a primitive biological backup system, one that values immediate gratification over long-term consequences. The terrifying truth is that the person you consider yourself to be, your values, your kindness, your integrity, is entirely dependent on the continuous, uninterrupted maintenance of your physical brain. Without it, the moral architecture you have spent a lifetime building can collapse in a matter of days. We are left with a profound realization. Your mind is not an ethereal, unchanging soul that exists independently of your body. It is a dynamic, highly fragile physical biological construct that must be rebuilt every single night. Every hour of deep, uninterrupted rest is not merely a break from productivity, it is an active act of self-preservation. It is the process by which you reclaim your cognitive blueprint, restore your capacity for empathy, and rebuild the biological foundation of your actual personality. When we ignore this fundamental biological necessity, we are not just sacrificing energy, we are slowly sacrificing our very identity. We are allowing our minds to be carved away by hyperactive microglia and fragmented by local sleep, leaving behind a depleted version of ourselves to navigate a complex, demanding world. The choice to prioritize rest is, therefore, the most profound ethical decision you can make. It is the choice to remain the person you want to be, to protect your relationships, and to keep your moral compass intact. As you prepare to close your eyes tonight, consider the vast, microscopic landscape of your mind. Think of the millions of swollen synapses waiting to be restored, and the silent microgardeners waiting to begin their delicate work of preservation. Your true self is waiting to be rebuilt in the dark. If our very morality and identity are so easily dismantled by a simple lack of sleep, can we truly say we are the authors of our own character, or are we just temporary custodians of a fragile biological machine? If you could look inside your own brain right now, which parts of your mind would you find are already asleep?